Hello and welcome to the Moviescramble podcast. On this evening's show, I am joined by both of my rather stunning-looking colleagues. I can see them on screen at the moment. You people out there in Audioland are really missing a trick here. If Mary would stop laughing, I would introduce her first, but she won't. So, Thomas, how the hell are you?
I am very good, John. I have been seeing lots of films. I've been rewatching some old films. Currently making my way through the Saw franchise to make way for the new one. So you know
Nice.
me, I love a good horror series when I was like 400-500 entries.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I have a box set of the first 8 Saw films. I think I've watched maybe 4 or 5 of them.
How many? I only thought there was 5 Saw films. What one is this that's come out?
10.
Oh, that would be why it's called Saw X, eh?
Did you think it was about Twitter?
I don't know what I thought it was about. I refuse to call it X. I don't know what I thought it was about. I didn't realise there was that many films, though. That's insane.
You've already heard her voice, and you've already heard some of her remarks about horror films. So, Mary, how the hell are you? How's things?
I'm very good. We are minus a car at the moment, so I've not been doing as much cinema as I would hope. So there's been a lot of grabbing what I can on streaming services at the moment. I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion, and also just lots of the stuff that is coming out the cinema later on this year, like your Napoleon, all that sort of thing. Martin Scorsese's new film as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. So hopefully we'll have a car back by then and I can get back to my Sunny World seats.
Yeah, basically, it's been so long since we've done the last podcast. Mary has now got a chauffeur the way John used to, because she said that. Yeah, we've not got a car at the moment, so I can't get out.
Yeah.
Well, in slightly more dramatic terms, the engine did explode in the middle of the motorway, and it was all a bit scary for a few moments. So not quite as Lady Penelope as you've made out.
No, we've kind of went from Driving Miss Daisy to Michael Bay's remake.
Yeah. There's maybe a side diversion into Christine or something like that. That's a bit weird, yeah. Notice how I didn't mention anything about, was it Titan? The French?
Oh, Jesus, aye.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just carrying a little holiday weight, definitely not pregnant with a baby car.
And we're back. Oh, man. Right, so on today's pod, we are not going to do a single review. Instead, we are going to basically have a bit of a review of the summer movies. Now, in terms of summer movies, we are really looking at a season that starts pretty much in May and has only just finished. This is really in terms of what you would call like Hollywood movies rather than anything else. But I'm going to touch on some movies that obviously didn't actually get theatrical releases and stuff like that, but we'll get into that as we get on with the discussion. This year has been a bit of a strange one. Again, it's actually the first full year since 2019 when we've had a summer movie season that has actually had blockbuster films coming out. It was still, last year was a bit hit and miss in terms of what the releases were. There was a lot of films that initially were meant to come out last year, but I actually saw the light of day this year. Some of the ones that we will be discussing. I've got a quick list of some of the main films that were actually released, and what I've seen from it is, even though there's been these major blockbusters, for me, the more interesting films were some of the smaller ones, and notably some of the horror films that actually come out during the summer, which is nice to see that horror is not just only for Halloween, it's also for the middle of a Scottish summer as well. So basically, we started off with Guardians Volume 3 back in the start of May, and that was the only Marvel entry for, well, if you don't count the Spider-Man film, it was the only MCU film. There was no summer MCU film at all. Next one is the Marvels, which is due to come out next month, I believe. So we went from that to Fast 10. So did we go uphill? Did we go downhill? I don't know. Then
is this like play your cards right? You named the film.
Higher. And then we went sort of full pelt with Little Mermaid, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Elemental, The Flash, Asteroid City, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, Mission Impossible, and then the main event of the summer, which I'm sure we'll be concentrating on, the Barbieheimer phenomena. And also, round about that time, we obviously had things like Gran Turismo, Meg 2, Blue Beetle, and Transformers, as well as Asteroid City, which, aforementioned, one of the smaller releases of the summer. So, initially, Mary, what did you think of this summer season? Just in sort of general terms, what did you think? Did it excite you, or did it? I'll let you explain. What did you think?
So I've seen a grand total of 3 of those films, and it's because it just all felt a bit like mid to average. Like there was nothing about, apart from Mission Impossible, which just I feel like I'm contractually obliged to see at this point because I've seen all the other ones, and obviously Barbenheimer. There was nothing in that really excited me. Even Little Mermaid, which I was initially excited about, then I realised they put a shirt on Javier Bardem, so that was me. I'd bailed out of that because the only reason I was going is because I thought he'd be topless. Yeah, there was nothing really about it that kind of set the heather on fire for me. I think I've completely fallen out of love with Marvel at the moment. I'm finding that all a bit of a slog. Same with the Star Wars sequels and stuff that are on Disney Plus at the moment. I'm really finding that difficult to actually keep the momentum in that. And the rest of them, because I'm not a Fast and Furious fan, obviously you guys are the experts, that just was never going to be my bag either. So whilst Barbenheimer did sort of take over everyone's life for a good 6 to 8 week period, and I'm sure we'll go into more detail on that, this wasn't the most excited I've ever been for summer cinema, although, as I say, there's been 2 or 3 really good films on there. There's a lot that just completely passed me by, either because it wasn't performing well, so it came off the Cineworld screenings quite quickly, or because it went straight to streaming, and I just haven't get round to it yet because I'm sure, like you guys, my watch list is enormous and ever growing. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. There is a lot to talk about of the stuff that I have seen, but just there's a lot that I just haven't seen.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, like you say, there's a lot of content just from what I've mentioned, and some of them were only in cinema screens for a couple of weeks, but no more. And you know, it's not always easy to get into the cinema and actually see them, you know.
I also feel like there was a really quick rotation this summer. It was like you really did have like a week or 2 weeks to go and see something, and then it was off because it had to make way for something else. I feel like films were kind of rushed through the cinema a little bit, and if they weren't performing on the scale of, you know, your Barbie or whatever, it was like, right, okay, we're taking it off after 5 days. I felt like everything was quite rushed.
Yeah,
it did seem that way.
Thomas, what do you think?
I actually forgot how many kind of big films kind of came out over the summer until you mentioned it there. For the majority, I would say I enjoyed most of the ones I saw, starting back from Guardians of the Galaxy. I can agree with Mary in the sense that I have fallen out of love with Marvel and Disney in general, really. I don't bother with the new Star Wars stuff on Disney Plus. I have zero interest in that. It doesn't appeal to me. The same with the Marvel TV shows. It's doing nothing for me. Everything just seems like very generic, like a formula across Disney in general. I did enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy 3 though. I thought it was great. It was a return to form. You mentioned it was only Marvel falling out over the summer. The Marvels is next. That shouldn't be a bad thing. I also don't think they should be releasing 2 films a year personally, but hey, I'm just me. But we could have the whole podcast on Disney and their marketing strategy. I really enjoyed Fast 10. I did enjoy Fast 9. I thought Fast 10 was really good. It's leaning into how ridiculous it is now, and that helped a lot. And getting back to Disney briefly, one of the bigger disappointments for me this summer was Indiana Jones. When I watched it, I enjoyed it, but it was done. I didn't really have much desire to see it again. The more I thought about it, the more I kind of nitpicked. So I didn't want to dwell on it too much because, like I said, when I enjoyed it, I had fun, but it just again felt very formulaic. Not from a movie blockbuster point of view, but from what Disney want films to be like, where it's Star Wars.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Because I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge did the script, so that gave me some sort of hope that it would be a little bit more interesting. But then I remember you two both saying at the time that it was like okay, but you weren't going to be thinking about it in a week's time, which is...
I mean, the thing as well is, like, I think Fleabag's brilliant. I'm a massive fan of it. But I don't really think of writing what's in that kind of grand scale, personally. I thought the film looked quite cheap at times. You could tell on the green screen. It just looked like every sort of Marvel film you've seen recently. even the plot was very similar to Star Wars in terms of formula. I know the plot so much, but the formula and how they went and did The Force Awakens. Now, we could all turn around and talk about the hero's journey. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that Disney have created this new formula for films, and they will tell audiences are going to like it, regardless if they reject it or not.
Sure.
Which is a shame, because these are really good IPs. But like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was really good. It did give the creative control back to James Gunn to give him his swan song, and it really showed. Again, not a blockbuster, but one of the best films of the summer, which would have been a blockbuster if it had a budget, and it was for Hollywood, was Sisu. It's low budget Finnish film, which is like the action film of the summer, and it's just
why was that not in cinemas? Was it in cinemas?
It was in
for
cinemas,
like a wee week.
Not long.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons I enjoyed. That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed Fast 10. It was unapologetic. It just didn't care. It wasn't trying to be anything other than a stupid action film.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just what you need. You don't need a lecture. You don't need a message. You don't need this overarching moral code to your film. You just want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. And I think blockbusters overall. I don't sort of about well, of course, here, but it goes back to my point of blockbusters. Sometimes you want some popcorn, overpriced nachos, big massive juice, and just switch off. And sometimes you can't do it. And yeah, Jones wouldn't let you do that. He tried to, but nah. I'm disappointed the way Disney's going. I'm even looking forward to the new stuff. I'll go and see the Marvels, but somebody did a good point regarding that is blockbusters these days, it's like you need to do your homework. And it's even applied to DC with the Flash film. And granted, I get a part of bigger universes. I get there's films that come before it and stuff. But you do need to do your homework before you go to see these films now. Whether it's watching all the Marvel films, the Avengers, that's different. That's a story. Now you're expected to watch all these Disney Plus programs and things. I'm like, no, I don't want to do homework before I go to see a film. I want to go and see a film. If I have to have seen the previous films, that's one thing. I don't want to have to then consuming all this other content just to enjoy a film.
But that's what they obviously want. They want to keep you in this Disney, Marvel, whatever it is, content loop, so that you're not giving your time to other stuff, so that you are watching a 12-part series and then a 3-hour film and then back to a 12-part series and back
Problem
to...
Problem is, though, everything has suffered across the board because of it, in terms of content and quality.
Yeah, the quality, I would say, and this is what I mean even about the Star Wars stuff. I mean, I will watch Baby Yoda do nothing for hours on end, and sometimes I do. But at the same time, it's this feeling of being, as you say, you have to do your homework. You're caught in this sort of content loop at the expense of things that I'm looking forward to. For example, Mike Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher. I'm absolutely going to give my time to that because I think it looks really exciting, and I'm not going to watch other stuff at the expense of the stuff that I do feel is the good quality, because and I hate to sound like an old woman, but I do feel like the quality across the board is so poor that I'm really trying to seek out the stuff that I think is actually worth my time. I mean, don't be wrong, I like watching shite, I absolutely do, but it still has to be good shite.
No, definitely. That's to entertain you. And I kind of got to a point in Marvel where it's okay, it's fair enough, like what I can say, you're watching the films that have been released once a year through the years, building up to Avengers. And if you're getting an Avengers complaining you don't know what's happening, that's different from, I don't know what's happening in Marvels, because I didn't watch WandaVision.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have, WandaVision as a standalone show shouldn't have had anything to do with this, but they're putting, it's not even Easter eggs either. Like, the Flash film had loads of Easter eggs in it. It was rewarding for fans. It wasn't the greatest film, I quite enjoyed it. But there was a lot of flaws in it, but it did reward fans across the board by wee Easter eggs here and there, rather than you won't have a clue what's happening unless you've seen 700 hours of other shows. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, there's an expectation of this really hardcore fandom in it, and you can't be a casual viewer anymore.
Yeah, for any film, especially summer films, to work, they have to work as standalone films. They have to be able to tell a story from start to end. Now, like Thomas says, if there's Easter eggs in there, and it rewards people who have watched other stuff, but that shouldn't be done at the expense of the content that you're actually watching. Again, look, with a number of films in this list, they actually had handy little catch-up elements, especially Fast 10. That had a whole sequence that explained why Jason Momoa was actually in the film, because it's actually a direct sequel from the 5th film. in the franchise.
Okay.
And it works because
he's clearly not in it.
They tie it in really nicely. It works really well. And they just say, this is what it is. Just accept it. Now we're going to have cars hitting other cars.
No.
Do you know what? I'm okay with that though. See if they're just like ignore 6, 7, 8, 9. This is what we're doing now.
Oh no! Even
I'm
better,
okay
even
with
better
this.
than that.
I'm okay with
Even
this.
better than that because they explain the entire franchise and some of the good exposition I've seen in a film.
Mm-hmm.
You basically got the head of the kind of secret organisation type guy. The guy who played Jack Reacher on the TV show, his name escapes me, and he's saying, "So you've got these guys. They started off stealing DVD players and street racing." But then, and he goes through the films, you're thinking, this is absolutely ridiculous. These guys were just street racers that were stealing DVD players. Now they're like international super spies.
Mm-hmm.
It's he's explaining that you know it's ridiculous. It's supposed to be ridiculous. It's even bits where like Vin Diesel's like, there's one thing you've got to do. You made a mistake. What's that? He didn't take my car off me. Then he drives the car off a wall or something because he's just like, he's got superpowers that can control the car. But it leans into it this time. There's ridiculousness.
Totally, there's one of the main characters in it. They have a discussion about how they've been through all these adventures and they've never been shot. And he says, "I've got holes in my jacket. How come I've never been shot?" And it's that kind of level.
That is good.
It becomes super self-aware. I mean, not looking at they might have a spoiler here, maybe.
No, go for it.
I think maybe we'll right, yeah.
The logic between the films is actually incredible as well. So you've got Fast and Furious 9. John Cena comes into it as Vin Diesel's brother. Now, he has not been mentioned in 9 films. Vin Diesel.
Oh, that he has a brother.
Yeah, all Vin Diesel talks about is family the entire time. The whole meme, family. But he never told you the brother until the thing film. John Cena comes into it and he's evil. He's a pure badass. He's trying to kill them all. Then he turns good at the end. In this film, John Cena's back playing a completely different character who's supposed to be the same character, but he's now like the fun uncle.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because you're watching it going, it shows you that John Cena's a really good actor because he's playing these two characters completely different, but it's the same character. Like, what's going on? It's hilarious. It's like, what happened between films? And nobody dies in these films ever. Nobody ever dies.
That is... I mean, surely there's got to be some side characters that have died off, no?
Every single character you think will have died seems to come back at some point.
Right, okay.
And also, nobody stays evil. You could have murdered 500 people in the 7th film. In the 8th film, you team up with them. Wisecrack, you're a good guy now.
I mean, the way you sell it, it does almost make me want to start watching them. Almost.
Honestly, it's just as they care in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what blockbusters should be to an extent. I'm not saying every blockbuster has to be stupid and daft and just fun. But it doesn't do any harm.
No, I mean, I think the thing is, if you look at obviously the two halves of the Barbenheimer, both of them had quite serious messages, obviously elaborated in entirely different styles. But then you look at Mission Impossible, and it was just like stunt after stunt after stunt. And I didn't come away feeling like I'd been taught anything, but I don't need to.
No, you don't always need a lecture when you go and see a film. And Oppenheimer was incredible in its themes and that. But you could watch it without having to know what happened. You've seen 5 different TV shows.
Yeah.
Based
or
on
have an understanding
science.
of physics. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Even Barbie, you didn't have to play the Barbie as a child to enjoy the film.
No, you never even have to have seen a Barbie to understand.
But it had a lot of wee deep cuts and Easter eggs in it to appeal to fans, which is perfect. But you want a film that appeals to the masses and rewards the hardcore fans. In fact, it might have just been before the summer, but Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's a standalone film in the hopes of a new franchise, but that film just came out before the summer, and it's a shame because that would have been a perfect summer blockbuster. It was a film that didn't insult its fan base, didn't lecture to its fan base, didn't pander to anything. It just told a very amusing story that rewarded the fan base by throwing in the Easter eggs here and there.
I think that we have, and this is, we've all used this word, which is interesting, but we're very much, and big executives and corporations are getting very caught up in this notion of content.
Mm.
And I think that's a very slippery slope when it comes to the quality of, cinema as an art form that we're supposed to be. And again, I'm not saying everything needs to be super heavy and have all these themes, but it does need to be entertaining, and it does need to sort of leave the audience with something. And I think the more that we refer to things as content, it just sounds so disposable.
Yeah. It just,
but no, even that.
They seem to focus more on the future films and TV rather than what they're actually presenting in the first place. So many times you get a film and it's really just an introduction to something else that's coming down the line. You don't get a proper story.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen the Dungeons and Dragons film, but I've been told that it doesn't do that. It actually works really well because it's a really well-made film. So that's encouraging, and they're concentrating on the now rather than on 2, 3, and 4. Which, I mean, let's face it, we've seen that so many times about how that falls apart. Look at the Universal Monsters franchise that was going to start, and how that fell to bits before it even started. They denounced everything, and it just did not happen because one film failed. It's just
and I'm still sad about this. Still sad. Honestly, I actually have the photo on my phone where they did that big studio shot of them all lined up against the blue backdrop, because every October I've actually looked at it this morning, I get my Universal Monsters Blu-ray out and watch all the old monster movies and stuff like that. I love all that, and I was so excited for that, and then it all went to shit because Tom Cruise allegedly.
We did get a very good Invisible Man film as a casualty of that universe failing, though.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a fair point.
But yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's like that everything had to be a universe, didn't it? Everything had to be this franchise. Yeah. You know what? I get they're trying to make money. The problem is they're doing these things and it's not making money. And Disney will lose a lot of money with the things they're doing. And so we'll try something different then.
But it's because they're doing what John said. It's not like, do you know how that'd be like, for example, I mean, I don't know if this was the case, but I feel like John Wick happened, it was good, and everyone was like, we want a sequel. And it's like, okay, we'll give you a sequel because actually this did do really well. And then like a lot of thought went into the sequel. Now it's like, right, okay, we're spunking this film out because we know we want to do 4 or 5 other ones. And there's no actual care behind, like, are people going to enjoy this? What's the audience response to this? Oh, they love it. Maybe we should give some more and actually put some thought into it. It's literally just like, well, we've got 5 films planned, so you have to like this.
Yeah. Or even worse, that's what 5 films planned. So we're going to leave it a cliffhanger, then not make the films.
Yeah, that's somehow worse. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, the Black Adam, for example, everybody from a fan point of view was buzzing to see Henry Cavill back as Superman. It's like, whether you like the film or no, it was good to see him back in the suit. You're thinking, excellent, he's back in the fold. We're going to get another Man of Steel film at least. Nah, it just appeared this week.
Now we have him as a toilet brush. If you've seen the trailer for Argyle, that haircut is the most unflattering. I don't know how they've managed to make Henry Cavill look like shit, but they have. That haircut's appalling.
Trailer looks good though.
Trailer looks excellent. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it was too. But then regarding the whole kind of DC thing as well, it's Blue Beetle is a film that I think underperformed at the box office. Unsurprising because I don't think people really understand where it was sitting in the terms of this, because it works as a standalone film. I thought it was okay. It's fairly average. It's fine. You know, it's nothing great. But in the whole, and even in that film, they're world building in it, which is fine. But they're planning for a sequel. But you're also hinting at being part of this universe that's dying.
Right.
So again, if you're appealing to the fan base, it's been following these films. We know that world doesn't exist anymore because James Gunn's been dismantling it. Shazam 2 comes out. There's apathy towards it based on the fact that
you're from the fucking cast.
Because you knew, where's it going? Wonder Woman pops up in it, excellent, but what's the point? The Flash film, that almost felt like a reset. But again, it's a film. I think I'm amazed the director managed to get it released and made any coherence with it, with everything that happened for that film from the day one till it came out. But again, you're like, it doesn't really offer much for the future of DC. And then Blue Beetle comes out and you're thinking, is this going to be the start of the new DC? And James Gunn says no, sort of kind of in-between type thing. And you're like, right.
I mean, imagine, you've basically just come out and said, yeah, this is just filler. What the fuck is the point?
It's pretty much. It's as well saying that. Is that odd sort of better term for it, like a transition Period. Further's probably a better way to put it, unfortunately. And I guess a character that who's really you about Blue Beetle when it comes to things.
Mm-hmm.
You can say this about.
I've never heard of it.
I mean, Marvel done the same with Iron Man and things. Like Iron Man was hardly a household name at the time. It was probably better known than Blue Beetle, to be fair. But Guardians of the Galaxy weren't that well known. But by that time, you've got some kind of goodwill in the bank. The time Guardians comes out, and
also with Guardians, I think probably I don't actually know who was in Blue Beetle, but I'm assuming bigger names were in Guardians.
Blue Beetle had the guy for Cobra Kai. His name escapes me.
I don't watch that, sorry.
It's really good, but it didn't have like a all-star cast type thing.
Mind you, in saying that, was by the time the first Guardians came out, was that really an all-star cast? Probably slightly better known.
Slightly better known, but like Thomas says, the characters weren't known, and there was an awful lot of speculation at the time saying, what are Marvel thinking here? Why are they doing this? Why are they not just, like you say, churning out another Iron Man film? Why are they introducing these, like a space rabbit? That kind of idea.
And let's be honest, one of the best things about the Guardians film is it did work very well as a standalone film.
Mm-hmm.
A few wee Easter egg nods here and there to build up the whole Avengers thing, but it just worked as this fun sci-fi thing, and it's regarding the blockbuster thing. It's all very well having fan service, but you need to reward those fans as well. It's not the same thing.
Yeah,
but I also think as well with some of the summer blockbusters as well, you're going to get it's I'm saying this from a purely Scottish perspective, right? It's Glasgow. Inevitably, it's going to be pissing down at some point during the summer, which means you're going to board kids in the house, and parents are like, oh, fine, I'll take them to the cinema. You cannot have a film that is completely not accessible for, as I say, like these kids and these parents are just like on a random whim going on like a Tuesday afternoon or whatever to go and see. Like, it cannot be that you have to have all of this, as you say, do your homework before you can actually just go and sit down and enjoy a film. Why are they making it so hard? It just seems ridiculous to me.
And here's the thing regarding the kind of difference in fan service and rewarding fans type thing. It's a throwaway line because never really mentioned it. It was in the trailer for Blue Beetle when they're talking about Batman and where the guy turns around and says Batman's a fascist. And the whole point of that line is to get a laugh. But it's been wildly regarded by the DC fan base. The best thing to happen in the last few years has been Ben Affleck's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't agree with them because Ben Affleck's a really boring actor for me. I'm really sorry. But that I can imagine how a tiny soundbite like that, though, has been completely...
But also, what does it say? Why is Batman a fascist? And then it starts this discourse online of people saying, well, he almost sticks up for... And it's, oh no, don't even read too much into Batman here. Come on, it's a fucking superhero. Oh, come on, just stop. Stop trying to lecture me on things I like.
However, out of all the superheroes, I mean, he probably is most likely to vote Republican because he is like a rich boy that lives in a tower. So, I mean...
That's just something that I think it was actually... I don't know, I'm not saying it was a writer for the film or something involved with the film, but they said, why does Batman dress like a bat and fight criminals rather than use the money to try and help people? Maybe because that'd be a shit fucking story.
Yeah.
That's not going to sell comic books, is it?
I don't want to watch a Batman film where Heath Ledger's Joker
he's just a flip.
Bruce Wayne sitting in his house going, do you know what I could do with this? I could actually just give them... The film basically involves him going, I'm going to give some money to Harvey Dent because I believe in Harvey Dent. You go dress as Batman and Batgirl? Nah.
I'm just going to be a
Joker's probably fucking murder him.
Yep. I'm going to have a charity ball.
Aye. I'm going to have a wee telethon. Open a food bank, a wee soup kitchen.
I get what you're saying. It's funny though because it's one of these things where, again, there's this hardcore fandom and then there's people that are only too willing to sort of jump on these extreme interpretation bandwagons and they all grow arms and legs, as we know. So,
yeah. But it goes back to the old thing, you just sometimes you might watch a film when it's so in a blockbuster. And you get that real behind me, you get it with Barbie. Because they weren't sequels. They were original
Although
script.
I am concerned that... I am concerned that because Barbie has performed so well that Mattel obviously have all this IP now that they can potentially play with.
They're doing that. They're partly going to bring all these different films out based on toys, and you think to yourself, okay, no, don't. Transformers even hinted at that.
Just don't do it. Don't do it. This, like, as I say, we'll go on to it, but like, I honestly know like grown women, myself included, who have wept at the message. People were like cheering and clapping when I went to see Barbie because some of the messaging in it. Don't turn that into content.
They already have though. I mean, although I enjoyed Barbie, I don't say criticism, actually, just a comment on Barbie is a lot of it wasn't for me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I was the same. I saw people dressed in pink at the cinema, cheering, loving it. I'm perfectly fine. You know, it's like I'm not for a second saying just because I didn't get something that therefore it's necessarily wrong. To me, I thought it was really funny the fact that it's got all these deep, influential messages and selling a shitload of toys at the same time. Appeals to children, but isn't really for children.
Yeah.
It was basically they managed to win a award. Warner Bros. Had a award when I watched the sense. They managed to
100%, because Barbie sales
every single box.
Yeah, they will go. Barbie sales will go through the roof, and they will make Barbies and Kens based on the Barbies and Kens in that movie. But I almost feel like because it was at least didn't feel like a cash grab, they kind of get away with it a little bit more.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I say, I think it's actually genius for their point of view. Is they've managed to tick every single box possible in one. Whereas you get Marvel, for example, or Disney, they'll tick as many boxes as they can. But the one they forget to do is the entertaining film.
Yeah, because they're hoping that people like me will just go and buy, you know, a set of Baby Yoda ears or a new T-shirt or a mug, which I probably will, let's be honest. But, I mean, for example, the last season of The Mandalorian was so poor. And I'm quite happy to see that. I mean, it's absolutely atrocious. It was the same shit over and over again. And yet, would I watch another season if it came out? Probably. But I'm not, like, it's one of those ones where I'm not committing to all these other spin-offs and stuff like that because I'm so, like, I'm watching this because I like this wee character and it's cute and it's all the rest of it. But I'm not actually watching it because I'm getting anything out of it. So it's, yeah. I think a lot of it feels like a merch grab. A lot of it across the different companies.
Yeah. Definitely. So I was going to say, I would watch a spin-off of Alan, mind you. People said
I would 100% watch that. I absolutely loved him in that. He was so good.
I've got a question for both of you, actually. Mary, maybe your best answer this one.
Oh, dear.
Was Ken an incel in the film?
Oh, I didn't think he was an incel. I think what's interesting is there's been so much debate around his character, and what I think a lot of people are not getting is the fact that everybody just accepted from the offset, as in the characters, that this was very much a matriarchal society and the women had the good jobs and the men were there to literally be looked at because their job was beach. And so I don't think he was an incel. I think he was exposed to this patriarchy, which he obviously thought was something to do with horses. And then he thought that he wanted that, but actually he realized that the matriarchy, or a more sort of like equal society, was something that was more nurturing. And I don't ever think he was an incel, because they have that scene where he's like, oh, I think we can go back to your place. And she's like, for what? And he's like, I don't know, because we're boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, there was no sexual thing about me. Obviously, as a Ken doll, he's smooth, right? So there was no sexual undertone to it for me. I think it was just like he had his little taste of patriarchy, but then realised that actually wasn't healthy either. Although I did love the scene when he walked into the hospital and he was like, I would like to perform surgery, please, because I'm a man.
I'm glad.
And then it really just, all I could think of was that meme, and it's like, oh, to have the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's all I could think of.
I'm glad, because the idea of Ryan Gosling playing an incel would just be too much for me.
No, I mean, I didn't take that from it at all. I
don't know.
I can see why some people are reading it as that, though. There are a lot of men who are very upset by the Barbie film. So yeah, I can see that.
I thought the film was funny. I genuinely thought Ken was the best thing in it. I thought Ryan Gosling's Ken was brilliant. I thought the dance scenes were great. The dance off for the Kens.
Oh, honestly, I cannot tell you how many times I've watched that clip of him standing with the goblet in his hand when he goes onto the dance floor and he still looks raging. Love it. I love it.
So we've already got there in terms of the major elements of the summer movie release, and it was this sort of phenomena which basically came out of nowhere. I mean, for even up until sort of springtime, the only chatter was about the fact that these two films, Barbie and Oppenheimer, were coming out on the same day, and would they affect each other's box office, or, you know, would there be some sort of clash there in terms of it? And I know they're like diametrically opposite films, but then obviously some bright spark come up with the Barbenheimer idea, saw the posters and everything, and it just kind of took off from there in a major way. Now, this is something you see with movies once every 5-10 years, maybe, something as big as this sort of event cinema, like we've talked about in the past. I take it neither of you saw this coming in any way. It was a total surprise.
I can't think of two films, which obviously are so at the opposite end of the spectrum, but we're coming out. I can't think of a buzz like this before, because I was just about to say, I believe that Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible were supposed to be released on the same day, but I think Mission Impossible got pushed back. Is that right? So that it came out later.
That's
so
right,
yeah. you could have actually had this little, film off with that as well, but for whatever reason they didn't do that. But I honestly can't remember the last time two films like this that were coming out in the same day had such a, people were making posters, there's t-shirts, there's merch. I mean, talk about a cash grab and all the rest of it. Like, I've never seen anything like it, ever.
Yeah. No, a lot of films tend to avoid each other, like big sort of blockbuster films.
You would think, yeah.
No, one of the reasons is because of IMAX, because there are fewer IMAX screens, and they want these films projected in the biggest screens possible. So therefore, they book them off for a number of weeks.
I did see Mission Impossible and Oppenheimer in IMAX, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you've got two films that are coming out at the same time in that sort of scale, they will clash. Whereas Barbie and Oppenheimer, it's not necessary to see Barbie in an IMAX screening. You can see it in any big screen. The bigger the screen, the best. Let's face it. But it wasn't going to affect that kind of dynamic. And I think it was because initially the films were aimed at very, very different audiences. Now,
people thought Barbie was a kids' film.
Yeah,
like that. I assume.
Yeah, that's not the way it turned out. Obviously, because Barbie was a lot more interesting, it had a lot more depth than it was initially given credit for, which shouldn't really have come as a surprise given the people who were behind it and actually making it. But it was, they were looking at previous sort of Barbie animated films. Barbie Swan Lake, top 10. Yeah,
a classic.
I've seen that film so many times. Basically, because I obviously put a wee caveat in here. It was because my daughter was watching them as
John. If watching Barbie Swan Lake is what makes you feel better, then who are we to judge?
Mm-hmm. Although I did really like the fact that one Christmas she got a Barbie talking townhouse with a shower that you pressed the button and it went la 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 when she was standing in the pretend shower. All class stuff. But yes, it seemed to be that these two films could coexist quite easily because there wasn't much of a crossover. Now, obviously, there was a major crossover between them because of the whole phenomena. I read somewhere the perfect way to watch the films is not you watch Barbie and then you watch Oppenheimer. You watch Barbie up until the point when she says, "Has anyone ever thought about death?" And then you go away and you watch all of Oppenheimer and then you come back and watch the rest of Barbie.
Jesus.
That is genius. That is genius. That is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
There's actually one of my favourite bits for the Barbie film, and she's having an existential crisis.
Yeah.
I really there's so many that, like, even that bit as well where like she comes round to his house and he's like, he sees me for a second, he goes round the wall and he just shouts "Sublime," and apparently he ad-libbed that and she had to really keep a straight face. There's just so many bits that were so funny, even when she was like, "Oh my god, am I getting cellulite?" and like this was a huge big thing, and it was just, there were so many bits that were so funny and so well handled, and I just I exist in the Venn diagram of the Barbenheimer crossover. I love them both.
Helen Mirren is the narrator was genius, and it was a bit when like Margot Robbie's Barbie's like talking about being ugly, and it freeze frame is like a note to the filmmakers: don't cast Margot Robbie for trying to make this point in the film.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, there was so much of it that was so good. And I think it was just, I mean, like Oppenheimer, which again, I'm sure we'll discuss, it was so perfectly cast. And I think, do you know what, actually, for all that I loved these two, it's made me think about, and I hate to say this, it's not that I didn't like Mission Impossible, but it's that I'm still referencing Barbie and I'm still referencing Oppenheimer and stuff just now. And actually, I feel like the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning was one of the weaker ones in the series. Don't get me wrong, there was loads of stuff that I liked about it, and I loved a lot of the stunts and things. But I Fallout was better.
Mm-hmm. I loved the new one. I thought it was brilliant, and I think it was based for me. It was compelling to go into Indiana Jones, where I'm watching this film. It's made of being a cartoon at this point because it's just all green screen. Gets the Mission Impossible. The grand scheme of things, the plots are quite similar in a sense of that kind of MacGuffin type idea.
Yeah.
There's all these physical stunts that Indiana Jones films used to be known for. Now I know Harrison Ford's about 5, so you can't do that stuff anymore. Well, don't do that stuff. Work around it. Work around the limitations. Maybe just don't make the film if you can't do it. But with Mission Impossible, it's Tom Cruise in the motorbike. It's him doing the stunts.
Yeah. Oh no, and the thing is, it still makes me feel physically nauseous watching him, dangle off things, fly off things, whatever. I mean, I thought the scene with the wee Cinquecento was incredible. They're obviously handcuffed back to front with each other. They're swapping over the drive. Although I did feel quite smug, I turned around to Crystal and went, they'll not actually have been allowed to drive down the Spanish Steps. It's illegal. And then that disclaimer came up at the end in the credits, and I was like, see, I was correct. But I loved all of that, but I did feel like the villain wasn't great. And now that I've started watching Ozark, I'm like, oh, that's that guy.
So I'm just laughing that I did actually a disclaimer for Mission Impossible, where there's a fast kid not blowing up the Vatican. And it's like,
and don't give a fuck, yeah. There's probably some people Googling, is the Vatican still around yet? No, I mean, I don't know. I just felt like there was too many elements of this film that felt very similar to Fallout, but not executed as well. And it wasn't my favourite. And I feel like now that we're talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer, I'm like, yeah, those two really were the standouts for me. And it feels like Mission Impossible's maybe been left a little bit in the dust. I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's absolutely not. It just wasn't my favourite. The villain wasn't great. And although technically we are all supposed to be scared of AI right now, even that concept just didn't really land with me. I mean, as I say, the stunts and all that were great. Hayley Atwell obviously is beautiful, and watching her in IMAX is a joy. But I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something. Maybe I should watch it again.
I think they should have had a script meeting where somebody raised their hand and said, do you think we've said the phrase "the entity" too many times? Christopher McQuarrie like, no, we're good, we're gold, don't mention it that much, and it's every 5 minutes, it's the entity, and you're going, yeah. See, that's the problem with having your antagonist in a film, and it's not a person, it's a thing. It's almost like a concept more than anything else. That's
a good point, yeah.
That's
even what was his character? What was his character called? That Issei Morales, because he was supposed to have been in a previous film, but was he actually, or was that just like a CGI flashback?
No, I think that was a retcon.
This was pre-first Mission Impossible film. This was the reason why you get in, why Ethan Hunt was brought in.
That's what it was. But even that, I was just like, okay. I don't know. It was there was something in it that was missing for me. I can't put my finger on it though.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, you don't always have to tie things back to somebody's past. You can just bring in a bad guy, I mean, look at Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third Mission Impossible film. He was just a baddie. He was just a bad guy, So, and there was no connection between him and anybody else. But it seems to be the case more and more. Yeah, we bring in a character and it's been somebody from his shady past. Now, that's probably going to get well, I suppose it sort of ups the stakes and makes it more personal for your main character, and it also expands your story so they can run it over 2-3 hour films. And I can only emphasize this: 2 3-hour films.
Is the next one confirmed? Is that as a runtime as well? Then,
if they've done a film that's 2 3/4 hours for the first episode, the second one isn't going to be a tight 90 minutes.
Yeah,
it's going to be the same. Yeah.
Do you know what?
Sorry, I was going to say regarding bringing the villain in. See, if you've introduced that villain, say the first film, you're going to look back round. That's one thing, because it does have more stakes rather than just, we're telling you now the go history, rather than showing us they've had the history. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a seventh film, It's the seventh film that last right now. He's a big bad guy, and he's Ethan Hunt's nemesis. You've just not heard him until now.
I think that's the issue that I have. It's kind of what you said about this, you know, John Cena is this mystery brother. Like, there's never even been a hint that this guy was remotely on Hunt's radar. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, he is the whole entire reason for his being, the way he, you know, goes about. I actually, in a nicest way possible, again, I don't need to have a background story in Ethan Hunt. See if he just wants to go around stopping bad guys or jumping off buildings or whatever. I actually don't care. I don't need the personal story. It's a bit like James Bond. I just want him to go and like shoot people. I don't need the personal thing. What I did wonder though was, given that they had the character of Grace dressed very similarly to Ethan Hunt the entire way through the film, is there going to be a spin-off with her?
Well, there's already talk of a spin-off of People Will a Bridge and the Jones TV series type thing. I just said, no, stop it. Not everything has to be like that.
No.
Yeah. I'd never thought about that, actually, the fact that they look so similar. But there's another theory there in that she may actually take over, because obviously Tom isn't going to be doing that sort of shit for much longer, let's face it.
I think, according to Scientology, he's immortal, so I think he probably will be making action films for as long as he possibly can.
John, how dare you say Tom Cruise is slowing down? Try to pick that straight here.
Actually, do you know, I read the other day that he said he's really, really keen to make a traditional, like, you know, MGM musical. That's his next wish.
Yeah.
Because Rock of Ages went down so well that...
Before touching on Oppenheimer, which I'm pretty sure we're about to do, can I just put a wee shout out for the Meg 2?
Yeah,
I can't believe I missed this. I love the Meg.
The Meg 2 was one of the films over the summer that delivered. It was Jason Statham fighting a bigger shark.
Yes.
And that was what it was advertised as. What was it? What was the tagline? New shark, old chum? Which I thought,
oh, I love
splendid.
I mean,
tremendous.
I didn't like the Meg that much. I thought it was very neutered in a lot of ways. It
absolutely was.
This wasn't.
Nice.
And again, it was unapologetic. It's absolute nonsense. It knows it's absolute nonsense. There's a bit where, but I'm not going to mention it because you need to see it for yourself, but it defies physics to the point you're actually thinking, am I going to Google this and see if this? No, I'm not going to Google it. I'm not going to Google it. It's ridiculous.
Your search history's dodgy enough without adding.
I can't even believe I'm going to Google the logistics if that's possible. It isn't possible. Just enjoy it for what it is. Jason Statham is immortal. It's daft. It's really, really daft. But it knows it's daft, and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun.
And you would never expect to see a film by Ben Wheatley at the end of the film either. You know, you're thinking,
oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yep.
That's insane. Oh, that's insane.
And he is completely unapologetic as well. He says, I wanted to work with Jason Statham and I wanted to do a big film, use it as a calling card as well for doing other stuff. So yeah, and he pulled it off, I think.
Yeah, it's not
a really
not
good film.
It's not like he tries to put in his trademarks and make it something that isn't.
Yeah,
you're not watching this deep psychological horror.
Yeah, but in a way, he's been kind of building up to this. Oh God. No, if you think about it, he's been building up to this in a way. You're so pleased. I can't believe he's so pleased with that remark. Look at his wee face.
I know, I've never seen you so cheesered.
Maybe he's doing his meeting laugh and we just don't realise it. No, if you think about it, like Ben Wheatley did Free Fire, which is basically just one big firefight sequence. Yeah, there's a build-up of about 20 minutes, and then it's just a big firefight in a big warehouse, and it's just completely mental. And it's like it's almost like that he's making a statement on these type of films while thoroughly enjoying doing exactly those type of films. So yeah, you can see where he would go to. And yeah, you're right. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good movie, and it didn't outstay its welcome. I think it was under 2 hours, which is always very nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah. And they managed to explain away quite easily how certain characters didn't come back from the first film as well. They just which was quite brutal in a way, but you know, it all works. Yeah. So Barbie and Oppenheimer, opposites, and yet it was absolutely massive. Of the two, what was your favourite and why?
This is like,
or can you really compare them? Really, that's what I'm kind of getting at.
It's a tough one because I thought about this before, unfairly in a way, because I've not been thinking about that with a lot of other films. Come the end of the year, under my top 10, I'll need to make a choice on which one gets the nod. I mean, I'm more likely to probably, I don't know, actually, I was going to say I'm more likely to watch Barbie again, Oppenheimer. That's not even necessarily true. I don't know. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Oppenheimer, based on the performances in general from Robert Downey Jr. and things like that. But that sounds harsh to say as well, because I thought the performances in Barbie were excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I thought both scripts were really good, both scripts were really clever. There's a lot more humour in one than the other, obviously. Oppenheimer was a great laugh, but for me, it was just, again, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. There's a lot of stuff about it where I can appreciate. I knew it wasn't for me. That was fine. Oppenheimer, my love for the bomb, obviously, appealed to me. But no, the whole idea, the fear of the nuclear winter and things like that did appeal to me. The psychological horror aspect of it, of this guy who's responsible for creating a weapon that could destroy the world, and it's just from the horror aspect of it, I think it appealed to me more, and the fact it's real made it even worse. So Oppenheimer, in that sense, edges it based on a personal liking of it. No even sitting down constructing based films of critical essay, just a personal preference to what spoke to me more. I say Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm. I think it's like, what would you would call it, kind of Sophie's choice, really, in a way, wouldn't you? You wouldn't like to choose one of them, because both of them are sort of at the top of their game in terms of filmmaking for very similar reasons.
Oppenheimer makes me a women-hating misogynist as well.
The correct answer, Thomas, was Barbie, but and now you've been cancelled.
I fucking basically Russell Brand at this point, allegedly. Sorry, John, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say that they're very different types of films. Obviously, Barbie is a linear narrative, whereas Oppenheimer takes several strands and runs with them, jumping back and forward between certain time periods, and brings it starts in one place and it ends in the same sort of place, and it's just how it's all mixed in together. I thought it was a fantastic film. I mean, the performances in it were immense. Robert Downey Jr. was just so good, and that's in a cast that had so many good performances. I thought it was really bold, the fact that it was all filmed in a lot of it was filmed in IMAX cameras, and for maybe about 75% of the movie, it was people in rooms talking. Obviously, the big part of it is the explosion, which everybody knows is coming, and yet when you get there, it's so bloody tense. It's unbelievable. But then, on the other hand, when you start watching the Barbie film and you think it's going to be one thing, and it completely flips you around so quickly, and you go, "Wait a minute, this is something entirely different." It's almost a gateway of introducing people into more serious movies, but in a very, very sly way, because it's pink, it's big, it's bold. There's the whole sequence of the whole opening sequence of Barbie, where she's waking up in the perfect house in Barbie world and all that, and then it just subtly brings in these themes, and it gets a wee bit darker, and you're thinking, that's so clever, and people will enjoy it more, and it's going to have a longer sort of life because of the fact that there's so many things going on. It's not just a straight, Barbie wants to be a real girl, that's your Pinocchio story right there. It's something else entirely. It completely subverted expectations, and you can see that by the way that people would go back, and they wanted to watch it again and again and again. And yeah, it's so clever. I just can't go over how clever it is for a film that came out in the middle of summer when it's dumb season. Let's face it, we have mentioned this with some of the other films, and I am specifically looking at Fast 10 here, because that's a dumb. It's like dumb as a pile of bricks, that kind of film. But the two big films of the summer were ones that were actually quite intellectual, but in different ways, and they both made you think, which is no mean feat these days.
The thing as well is, it's really funny for all the people that screamed, as much as I've been critical the Disney, Star Wars, Marvel films and that recently, the whole go woke, go broke thing.
Yep.
And this is a film that people are rallying against because, or certain people, certain quarters are rallying against because it is quote unquote woke, and it's made $1 billion. Yeah.
How is it woke?
Because it's got I don't know. You know, people are like.
Yeah, it's an agenda against men, isn't it? That's basically what a lot of people are saying, which we have touched on.
Because we've not had millennia of agendas against women.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that's the issue that I have with it. So to compare them, Oppenheimer made me feel frightened. Barbie made me feel empowered. And they're two very, very strong feelings that I think are actually quite interesting to come out of a summer blockbuster for. The issue I have with people who are like, oh, that's terrible, Ryan Gosling was only in that film to be, objectified as a piece of meat. Hello? Like, where have you been? Where have you been? Women have literally existed in cinema for since cinema invented, to just be the pretty thing on the side, or the girl in tight latex, or whatever. So the fact that people are getting their knickers in a twist over, Ryan Gosling's character is funny as fuck, because it's a taste of your own medicine. And actually, what I'm excited about is the fact that Best Supporting Actor might come down to I Am Knuff and Robert Downey Jr. and Oppenheimer. Like, this is going to be the best fucking Oscars ever. I hope they have Ryan Gosling. Now how they do the songs from the films, I hope they have him coming out singing "I'm Just Ken." That would actually make my life.
But also the thing is, I mean, you know more about it than me. Wasn't Ken always just an accessory for Barbie?
So he wasn't an accessory, but he was never the main doll, because the whole point is it's Barbie and Ken, and he obviously jokes about being and Ken. So Ken has always been an afterthought, because Barbie has always been the doll, and it was only sort of in recent years when Mattel has sort of obviously brought more Kens into it, that there's been different types of Ken. But even Ken as a doll has gone through this transformation, because I don't know if you've seen Barbie dolls lately, but there are obviously more skin tones, more physical diversity in terms of body shape and ability, and Ken is actually going through the same thing. So Ken isn't always like the six-pack, blonde beach guy anymore, and it's really interesting that people that are sort of, I don't know, maybe that's why they think it's woke, because obviously there's a mixture of body types for Ken and Barbie in this film, and obviously a mix of different skin tones and stuff like that as well. And I think there might be a transgender Barbie in there as well. So maybe that's why people think it's woke. What I actually think people are getting frightened about is it's teaching women that you don't have to be, quite literally in a box. I think that's what people are losing their shit over, because how dare women unchain themselves from the sink?
I agree, Mary. How dare you?
I'm only allowed to do this podcast under supervision.
But no, I mean, it's the whole idea people say it's woke and that is because it's got a feminist agenda and things. I'm like, so see if it does, it's still a good film though. That's the thing. It doesn't take away. It's got this message, and see if it was this man-hating, like man-bashing film, it's still fun. That's the thing. There's a lot of films that kind of shoehorn messages into it and aren't fun.
Yeah. And this definitely didn't feel shoehorned, because obviously Barbie is held up as the perfect physique. Like there's obviously a whole generation of girls who ironically probably didn't like their bodies very much because they looked at Barbie dolls and realized they didn't look the same. So actually the fact that this film then sort of subverts that and talks about, you don't have to choose between being like the boss bitch and the mother or whatever, the fact that it actually uses Barbie as a sort of conduit for these messages, I think is excellent, because there's a lot of representation in terms of, America Ferrera's character. Obviously, Margot Robbie is the perfect Barbie, but there's also lots of different types of Barbies and lots of different types of Kens as well. So actually, I think that it's, as John says, you go into it thinking it's one thing and it sort of slides these messages in very subtly. Obviously, it builds up to America Ferrera's speech, and that is very obvious in its messaging. But actually, the rest of the film, you do kind of look at it and you're like, wow, that was really clever how they did this. Or, I mean, as I say, the patriarchy thing not being about horses, I have never laughed so hard in my entire life. Like, it was brilliant. But there were so many moments where I did feel myself welling up. And that's the thing. If there's lots of little girls in particular that come out of that film feeling like they can take on the world, then good. That's the way it should be. I mean, obviously, I don't want people going into Oppenheimer and thinking, I could learn some physics. That's a different kind of message. You
don't want to people in Oppenheimer going, I think I could create a bomb.
Do Do you know what Oppenheimer really reminds me of, which I absolutely loved in a way? The TV series about Chernobyl. It was that level of tension, and you were that bought into the characters, which I actually think is no mean feat in a one-off. Obviously, Chernobyl had the luxury of, you know, building up this kind of series, and again, you know what happens, but you were emotionally invested. Whereas when it came to Oppenheimer, I felt you were really bought into all the characters. I know there's an issue with Florence Pugh and her character basically being there for like 5 minutes of sex and then disappearing. I know there's issues with that. Nolan has come out and said that it was a 3-hour-long film. I obviously had to make cuts. It's just unfortunate that her story didn't quite make it in the same way. It's up to you to make your own mind up about that. But I think for me, Oppenheimer still had I don't want to say the thrill factor, that's not what I mean, but I was still holding my breath a lot at it, even though I knew where it was going, I knew it was coming. The sort of stampede scene in the college with the students all on the round, that is going to stay with me for a very, very long time. Like, the sound design, it was incredible.
I find the Florence Pugh thing as well. If it wasn't Florence Pugh in that role, if it was not a known actress, I don't think people would care that she came and went. But the thing with a film like Oppenheimer, there's so many, even the cameos are big names. I mean, sorry,
well, I was going to but I was going to say, yeah, you've got Gustav Skarsgård, you've got Ken Branagh, you've got all these huge names, and again, yeah, they kind of come and go.
It reminds me of that one I remember was in Hollywood when Tarantino was asked why Margot Robbie didn't have more dialogue. And it's, well, does she need more dialogue in the film? Does Florence Pugh be in the film more?
No, I think the issue was that people were sort of saying, like, obviously she was like nude during their sex scene. I think he still had like maybe his like shirt on and stuff like that. I think people were complaining about that as well, and the fact that could they maybe shown their affair in a different way so that she wasn't quite as objectified. You know, she was literally there for a sex scene, and as I say, she sort of disappeared. Again, where I land with that is it's a huge cast and it's a huge story to tell. Could they have told the story of the affair in a different way? Absolutely. They absolutely could. Did she have to be like naked and humping him in the middle of that wee room when he was sort of on trial? Probably not. But again, there's obviously been choices made there. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not a scriptwriter. Those choices have been made for a very specific reason, I'm sure. As a woman, I didn't feel offended by it. I'm just going to float that out there.
There is something that's come out quite recently. I've noticed this on Twitter, this discourse of people thinking sex scenes in films there shouldn't be sex scenes in films.
Yeah, I mean, that's been around for ages. That's a huge thing, yeah.
But I saw it kind of resurface again with Oppenheimer, and people really critical of it. This is also Nolan's first sex scene, I think. Yeah,
the thing is, I have no issues with this. I think the thing is that, I don't know, maybe it's because I watch a lot of European cinema and they're naked quite a lot.
You watched the film Has a Bobby, you were telling us earlier, so...
Yeah, exactly. There was literally just so many dicks on the screen. I mean, it's just... I feel like it maybe depends on what the sex scene is for. Like, if it's there to move on the story, or if it's there just to be gratuitous, or if it's there just to shock. Like, I understand those are very different things. I think it maybe depends on what it's for. And also, if the nudity is equal, like, again, it comes back to this whole thing of women's bodies being objectified and men's not so much because they get to keep the sheet on or whatever, or their trousers on. Like, I feel like if we're going to go naked here, let's everybody go naked. Let's not, I think there has to be an equality in it as well. And obviously, have intimacy coordinators on set who are there to choreograph that and make sure everyone feels comfortable and not exploited in the slightest. But, I mean, if Florence Pugh has not come out and said, yeah, I'm really appalled by that final cut, then can we assume that it's all okay?
Yeah, to be fair, I thought like that scene in the film did work for me, because later on when you've got when he's talking and the kind of the hearing, and you've got Emily Blunt imagining it, and a lot of people were saying that scene was really weird, but I thought that scene was really powerful, because that's all she could see in her head is her husband fucking somebody else, and she's there trying to support him, and all she can see that. And you see it Florence Pugh's fucking like they're having sex in the room, and she looks at her. I was like, well, that's fucking chilling.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they did it, but again, I think it just, I guess it boils down to your in.
But also, I think you're right about the European. I think sometimes people just need to fucking grow up a wee bit when it comes to dating a film.
Yeah, I mean, a body's a body. It's like we all have them. I don't understand people getting their knickers in a twist about body parts. I really don't, because literally everyone has them. But I think for me, if a sex scene is used to sort of, as I say, further things on, as you're saying, like it's showing you what's going on in Emily Blunt's head and stuff like that, I've got no issues with it whatsoever. I think it wasn't put in there to be gratuitous, I don't think.
I mean, I watched a lot of 80s horror films, and they're just gratuitous, good scenes for the sake of them.
Full of boobs.
Aye.
Yeah, pretty much.
That became like a trope for these films
as
well. And the reason being, they wanted to appeal to a certain demographic.
Yeah.
And you could argue the objectification part of it and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of women that go, leave boobs alone. Instead because it's all a fucking discourse thing. But I just think sometimes people get too uptight with a bit of nudity in a film to the point it's like, have you ever seen a fucking naked person before? Don't watch it with your parents then. And just say it wasn't gratuitous. It was, I give it a quite as a big film as well. It's like, it's not the first sex scene in a film this early summer. It's really not.
No, I mean, interestingly, the Mission Impossible films never do it. Like, there's never any sort of hint that Ethan Hunt is a sexual being. It's very much like he is. There's obviously the kind of like dalliance between him and Elsa Faust and stuff like that, but there's never nothing's ever shown. I don't know if that's a Tom Cruise decision or a film decision or whatever. But then again, you've got the flip side of the coin. You know, Ryan Gosling is quite literally there to be looked at in Barbie. He is the perfectly, you know, basically painted on abs with like the fake tan and the blonde hair and all that sort of thing. So it's, yeah, I know they're not the same thing, and I know they're not there for the Ryan Gosling thing is there ironically, and I fully understand that. But I think that, yeah, there's a lot of people losing their shit over sex scenes, and I'm not really sure why.
Gives them something to moan about, basically. That's what it comes down to a lot of the time.
That's true. And the thing is, you would think with all these additional practices on set now, like you do have your intimacy coordinators where they essentially choreograph things so that everybody knows what everybody's doing and there's no surprises. Like, you would think that people would be more accepting of that because there's definitely much more layers of, you know, consent and all that sort of thing. Although I did read this week that Michael Caine came out and said that he thought intimacy coordinators were a load of shite. So old man shouts at cloud, but yeah, exactly. It has come from Michael Caine. So
no, I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of keeping people safe on set. No, don't people shouldn't be getting fresh, especially women should be getting fresh into doing the scenes they don't want to. But I think sometimes people get a bit prudish when it comes to films. Because it's getting to the point they're going to be thinking, but every film, everything has to have a message. First, it was a film has to have the message. Now it's the scene has to have a message. And it's the scene, not just
these films did have really huge messaging, but obviously Oppenheimer is more in, well, actually you could argue Barbie's in your face as well. They did have really, really huge message. It's the execution of it that makes the difference. And I think those two films, as I say, I'm still thinking about various scenes and stuff like that. As I say, the sound design in Oppenheimer's like nothing I've ever heard before. So for me, it's like I've come away and it's months down the line and I'm still thinking about it, but in a positive.
Yeah.
So whatever they've done in terms of delivering their messaging has worked.
Have you seen the Slumber Party Massacre?
No, I have not.
Right. Well, you can imagine it objectified that. I did a remake of it a couple of years ago, and it was surprisingly very, very good. I mean, it was actually a very good remake, and there's a scene when the objectification when you get the guy with the six-pack and the abs, there's a shower scene, and it's ridiculous because it's just like really out of context, doesn't fit with the film, it's slow motion, soaping itself up, but it's taking the piss out of all these films before it that did that with women for no reason whatsoever. And actually, it's funny in the film because it's ironic and it works. But it's actually quite a good film as well because it's a very good remake. It subverts your expectations, and it's still
and subverts them in a way. I assume that's not like they're sort of token subverting.
It's still managed to be a very entertaining horror film.
Yeah.
And speaking of horror films, actually, talk to me. Not a blockbuster, but a very good horror film that came out over the summer.
Yeah,
that was good reviews about that.
That was one of the ones. I've got a wee list of 6 horror films, and that was one of them on the list. Obviously, Barbie and Oppenheimer were the high watermark in terms of box office for the summer. Barbie has so far made 1.4 billion, and Oppenheimer has made 912 million.
Oh, so it's not hit the billion mark yet?
I don't think Nolan films really do that, apart from the superhero ones. They are smaller. He doesn't make films for an awful lot of money, and he gets a decent return, but it doesn't. It's not all about the box office. I think for him, it's nice if he make money because he can keep making money. He can keep making films, and obviously Oppenheimer was a big one in terms of how much it cost. But that's the same with pretty much all of these big films we've talked about. They cost so much. They're costing so much more now, and
yeah,
I mean, obviously Barbie and Oppenheimer were successes. They were deemed to be successes, but pretty much everything else that we've talked about here has deemed to have actually been a major disappointment. Indiana Jones one is deemed to be a disappointment. The Mission Impossible film looks like it's going to lose money.
Yeah.
That's insane. And actually, I think Tom Cruise was arguing to continue promoting the film when obviously the SAG-AFTRA strike started. But that's a big surprise to me. And actually, I think if they had pitched up against Indiana Jones and got that extra week running, it would have beaten Indiana Jones at the box office hands down.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm surprised that I'm surprised it's not making. Do you know what? No, because I still maintain Fallout was better.
Mm-hmm. There is a big caveat, obviously, with the likes of Mission Impossible and the Indiana Jones film, in that they were made during COVID restrictions. It was very well. Does that mean
they'll have cost more money to have?
They've cost
made?
a lot more money because the whole production in Mission Impossible was shut down. Remember, they'd moved everybody to Venice, and as soon as they got to Venice, the whole production shut down. Because of COVID and COVID restrictions. And remember, they got a cruise liner in so they could all...
Yeah, they all lived on the boat,
So all that adds millions to the budget. So therefore, it's one of the most expensive films ever made because of the fact that it was stop and start. And there was so much in terms of overheads. Indiana Jones was exactly the same. I don't think it got shut down as much, but there was all these additional costs and delays, and shooting took much longer, which obviously adds to the cut-off line between a film actually breaking even and a film losing money.
And presumably for Indiana Jones, everyone had to get a tetanus shot for staying in Glasgow as well, which would have been expensive for...
Well, that's the thing. If I kind of forget, like, when I was in film, we were out that night, remember?
We were walking through it.
Yep. It's crazy, isn't it? Thinking back, I was what, 2 years ago? Yeah.
I think that was our first attempt at a night out after COVID.
Yep. Certainly was, yeah.
I'm shutting at 10 and things like that because COVID came out at 10 o'clock.
That's right. Oh, God, yeah, I remember that. Because remember we tried to get into a couple of pubs and you had to have booked to get in? Yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
so, even though Barbie and Oppenheimer made all the money, a lot of the others... A lot of the others bombed. Not bombed, that's been unkind. They didn't perform as well as they should. Now, obviously, the audience was there in order to make these films a success, but why do you think a lot of these films didn't perform in the way they should have, or were expected to perform? Was it a number of factors? Was it just purely the product wasn't there in terms of the story? We've obviously mentioned the fact that Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible had very similar storylines. There was a lot of train-based action on both of them, although with Indiana Jones one, there was a sequence on the train where I think Indiana Jones was supposed to be running along the top of a train, and it looked so bad. It was all CGI, and it looked terrible. It looked absolutely awful. But that aside, why, in your opinion, do you think that these films didn't perform in the way they should?
Do you know, I'm going to jump in here. I don't know if I honestly think that people are so out of the way of going to the cinema that when they're going to the cinema, they are going for the biggies. So everybody was talking about Barbenheimer, so everybody's going to see Barbie or Oppenheimer or both. I just don't know that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Tom Cruise promotes. So, and there is absolutely an audience there for Mission Impossible. But did anyone, no offense, really care that there was a new Indiana Jones film? Was there actually an appetite for that? I don't know. I mean, I obviously can't get in streaming. I'm not going to go down the road of streaming services bad, cinema good, because I watch plenty of stuff on streaming services as well. But I do wonder if people are being more selective about what they're actually physically going to see, because we went to see Mission Impossible opening weekend in the IMAX, and the cinema was less than half full, which I was shocked at. Whereas Barbie and Oppenheimer were both complete sellouts when we went to see them. So I don't know if it's just a case of people are being more selective about what they want to see, or maybe the hype just wasn't there in a way. Maybe they were released too early in the summer. I honestly have no idea. Sammy, you probably know more about these things than me.
No, I don't. To be fair, but I think that's a good point regarding the hype. And when it came to the Barbenheimer thing, whether it was organic or not, with the whole kind of Barbenheimer hashtag and the meme, and there was a hype. people were like, well, I want to see Bay films. A lot of people were just like, oh, I want to go to see Oppenheimer anyway. It was like, no, I want to go see Bay films. It became this cultural event. And that really
people were dressing up as like the boy was in black and the girl was in pink, or vice versa, and they were doing like there was a whole thing about it.
Even I wore pink. Got to see Barbie.
Yay!
You know, it was funny actually because I bumped into a guy at the cinema and he's like, "Oh, did you do that Rangers podcast?" I'm like, "Aye, how did you know see me when I went to see?" So he didn't go and see me when I went to see Fast and Furious 10, John Wick 4, but you bump into me. So I'm going to see Barbie myself. There was a lot of hype and bandwagon to that, and it's don't mind, I'd have went to see basic films anyway. A lot of people would have. Yeah. But the marketing does work regardless whether it's a studio doing it or not. Indiana Jones, it was appealing to nostalgia that I don't think a lot of people were interested in.
Yeah. Also, what I would say is that Mission Impossible's biggest stunts, so the motorbike off, that I had seen that like 5 fucking million times before it came. I mean, the clip was so overused that, in a way, I also wonder if people were like, "Oh well, I've seen the big stunt now, so you know." I don't know if that there was even a slight fatigue over the, as I say, Tom Cruise obviously markets, but I don't know if there was even a fatigue over that.
It could be a marketing fatigue, but the fact that maybe they started to market Mission Impossible too early. As you say, you saw the same stuff repeatedly before it came out. Although, to be fair, I saw the trailer for Oppenheimer about 500 billion times before the film eventually came out. They started marketing that really early.
In a way, though, it was just that scene of him walking down the corridor.
It didn't. It was on the ruined ending for me.
I was actually just about to like, wait a minute, did you not know?
I think the Barbenheimer hype thing really helped.
It did.
An open bar, we call it. I think that really helped the kind of hype thing. When it came to Indiana Jones, again, it's the 5th film, and the last one before that, it's not like the last Indiana Jones film was 2008, and it didn't really set the world on fire.
As long as that? Wow.
And it didn't really set the world on fire. Harrison Ford was looking old then. Mission Impossible, it's Mission Impossible 7 Part 1.
Yeah.
People, is there a fatigue thing, as you said? Not just the marketing fatigue aspect of seeing the same stuff constantly. People going, do you know, this is a franchise that I think is quite impressive that it's lasted like 30 years. But also at the same time, has it got that longevity for a fan service? Are the same people who went to see Mission Impossible in '96 going to see Mission Impossible 7?
Yeah, and I think the thing is, with the expectation with the Mission Impossible films is, you know, the stunts, and we've seen him, you know, climb the Burj Khalifa or hang off an airplane, or as I say, you saw that one with a motorbike a million times and then went up to it. And I also, it's hugely impressive. The guy is literally taking his life in his hands. And do I think there should be a stunt performance category at the Oscars? Absolutely. But at the same time, is that enough to draw people in? Just knowing that Tom Cruise potentially is going to kill himself by doing these things? I don't know.
The difference between the Mission Impossible sequence where he's hanging off the side of a plane, that was, and what he did for the motorcycle jump, it was marketed in the same way. They showed it early, because if you remember when he was hanging off the side of the plane, people were saying, wait, you're showing this actually as a trailer for the film. How are they going to top that? Now they managed to top that. It was very clever because that was the very first sequence in the film. They showed that and got out of the way. But with the motorcycle jump, not giving anything away, but it's at the end of the fucking film. So you're always
waiting for it.
When's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Then you get 2 hours into it and they say, oh, we need to catch up with this train, and you go, ha. So that's when it's going to happen. So it's going to be the big finale. So it was slightly different. And it takes away from the spectacle because you've seen it so many times. And you've seen the behind-the-scenes footage and how they actually did it. And because there was a whole documentary about that, wasn't there, that was released online about
it was how they very overexposed.
Yeah. And it's the centerpiece. Now, it could be argued it's the centerpiece for the first part, and therein lies another problem. People would go and see the Barbie film because it's a film. Oppenheimer film is a film. Mission Impossible's 2 films. Are you going to invest, 15 quid a ticket and nearly 3 hours of your time to go and sit through a film that doesn't actually end? It's going to end in, well, they say it's going to end next year, but that's obviously going to get pushed back now with
all the events
I've had. Well, production's been completely shut down.
Yeah.
On the film, and it was scheduled to finish principal photography, and then they have to do all the post-production stuff, and it was going to be out next year. No chance.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Absolutely no chance. You know, I think people were being far more selective, especially because the cinemas themselves, after COVID, have said, right, we need to start making a hell of a lot of money and start making money back. So therefore, ticket prices have all gone up, and for some of the cinemas, it's actually not worth it. I mean, the Odeon Lux cinemas, for instance, very nice cinemas, but for a lot of their films, standard ticket prices are nearly 20 quid now. And people are going, nah, you're all right. I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix, you know.
And I almost feel like these sort of big sweeping films, so like you've got your Napoleon and your Killers of the Flower Moon, although interestingly that's going to Apple TV first. I feel like people are saying, okay, I'll go and see these because they feel sort of sweeping and epic and large scale, and I do want to watch that on a big screen. Whereas I'm not saying Mission Impossible can, well, no, because it does kind of lose its effect. We saw it in IMAX. I'm saying watching it at home is a different experience, but I just feel like, people, they want the big IMAX experience for these films, or the on-screen experience for these films that feel more epic. And that's not to say Mission Impossible isn't epic. It's the fact that it was very overexposed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you've watched the motorcycle jump on your phone when you were scrolling, do you need to see it on a screen?
I love the film. I really did. I had a blast watching it. I really bought into it. But I do agree 100% with what you're saying. Yes. I can see why that'd be off-putting for people.
Tom Cruise, call us. We'll sort out your marketing.
Yeah. It's only about 15 years too late for that, yeah. So
if only if he'd met us before he started jumping on sofas.
So overall, what do you think? Do you think it was a good summer season, or was there room for improvement?
For me, the bigger films that appeal to me, like Indiana Jones, The Flash, things like that, were underwhelming. Although I enjoyed Indiana Jones when I watched it, but kind of forgot more or less everything about it. The cinema, The Flash, I really enjoyed that. There's a lot of things I didn't like about it. Enough fan service in it for me. Overall, I didn't quite like it. But again, a lot of issues. Films Oppenheimer, fucking Christopher Nolan, Mark, I'm going to go see anything he does. Thought that was great. Thought Barbara was great. Fast 10 was a bigger surprise for me because I really didn't like 9. And it was starting to lose a lot of steam for me.
Yeah.
I thought 10 was just an absolute riot of a film. It was so much fun. Jason Momoa, I would give him an Oscar, honestly. It was just, to see somebody having so much fun in a film is infectious for me. It's the scene as well when he's painting the dead guy's nails.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the robe and that on, like it's like a wee spade, but it's the 2 dead bodies. I'm like,
oh my God!
It's mental. But for me, my favourite films, apart from Oppenheimer, because they were great, was films that talked to me was films like Cobweb. I know it was September, but even The Covenant on streaming, the Guy Ritchie film with Jake Gyllenhaal, I thought it was excellent. Your bigger IP films, for me, were a bit more kind of underwhelming. But that's not even really fair, though, because I did like Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't feel like a Marvel film, bizarrely.
No, I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones did feel like a Disney film. No, actually, I quite like this. I quite like it for the films. I think it's going to be a bit more difficult for me to whittle in a top 10.
Good. Mary?
I mean, as I say, I've only seen 3 of them, so I feel like I'm not really primed to comment. What I did see was excellent. I'm enjoying actually seeing films that are like staying in your head a lot longer, because like I said, I feel like when we talk about content, it feels really disposable. So actually the fact that I am still thinking about, a particular moment in Oppenheimer, or I am still thinking about a particular speech or whatever in Barbie, or that I'm still listening to the Barbie soundtrack, that tells me that gives me hope for that we're actually still creating really good quality. So for all that, as I say, there's a lot of chat about sequels, prequels, universes, all the rest of it. What I did see was of really good quality, and that makes me hopeful for releases for the rest of the year, because as I say, I am worried that there's just so much stuff out there, and that's all it is. It's just stuff. And actually, for the discerning cinema going public, they want more than that.
Yeah, I think that's been proven with the success of Barbie and Oppenheimer, that there is a real market for proper stories.
Yeah, they're both original scripts. Now, I know Barbie's obviously based on a very successful toy line. Nobody's denying the fact that it's got a history to it. And Oppenheimer's obviously based on a real event. So, again, that's got real history to it. But they're both original scripts. And that's nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, the most impressive films were the ones that made me think. And like I touched on earlier, it was the horror films. It was the likes of Cobweb, The Blackening, even. I really liked that film as well.
I missed that.
It's a pretty good movie. That was September as well. But again, these are the ones that you come away thinking, enjoyed that. That was pretty good.
I know you're a big shite bag, but watch Cobweb. It's really good.
What is that? Is that in the cinema or is that on a streamer?
It was in the cinema. It'll probably go on streaming soon enough. It's got your man for the boys in it, Anthony Starr.
Yes. Don't tell me anything else. I'll just watch it.
Honestly, I still don't really know how the film has made me feel after watching it.
Oh,
It does not conform to. I usually need to watch it because it's not this deep, like arty. What's the word? The bit news? No high horror, but that terrible term.
Elevated
horror.
I hate that term, but that would probably come under that to an extent. But it's quite straightforward. Just watch it. You know what I mean, John? Don't you?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So apparently it's a Lionsgate film, and I don't have a Lionsgate Plus, but I wonder if it might come to Shudder or something like that, because I would absolutely watch it.
Yeah. The chances are with these films, they end up on the Lionsgate streaming service after they've been on something like Prime or Netflix or whatever. They tend to get sold off wherever. So the chances, because if you think about it, like the Invisible Man and all that sort of stuff, they all end up on these horror ones eventually, but they do get punted out to the main sites because they make a bit of money for them. And these films are all wildly successful based on the fact that their budgets are so small as well. So
well, I mean, if you even look back to like Ready or Not or The Black Phone and things like that, like the super small budgets, but actually obviously end up performing really well. I mean, I watched that. It's not a horror film. I watched that Philippe on Netflix and stuff like that, which was a wee Netflix release as well. Like, there is some good stuff out there. It's just that again, I feel like there is just. It's the saturation, isn't it? It's finding the good stuff in amongst all of the stuff. It is,
yeah. One of the main surprises for me this summer was the film Joyride, which is the four women who they've been friends for years, and they go on. It's like almost like a road trip film. They go in search of the real mother of one of the main characters, and if you saw the trailers for it, you would be saying, this is formulaic, it's rubbish, it's just not very good at all. But the film was completely different. It was bloody hilarious. Is
that one where they pretend to be a K-pop band in the trailer? I think I did see the trailer for that. Yeah.
There's a sequence where they actually sing a rather rude song as the K-pop band, and it's fucking immense. It's just so funny. And the payoff at the end of the song, so you just can't believe that they showed something like that on screen. I'm not going to say anything about it, but when you look at it, just make sure that you're not actually drinking anything at the time, because you will spray your drink.
Oh, I know, I love that.
It's just one of these things.
Do you know what? The trailer did make that look bad. And actually that feels unfair, because if you obviously really enjoyed it. I think, again, we've talked about this before, trailers doing you an absolute disservice and either, selling a completely different film. That's a shame, because I did see the trailer for that and thought, we've seen this all before, girls trip, blah, blah, hangover vibes, all that sort of thing. That's a shame.
Yeah. No, it's cracking. It's really good. It's really worthwhile. That's one that's going to pop up in streaming services in the next month or so, and it's definitely worth looking for. In fact, it might be a good one to have a chat about at some point in the future as well, which would be
excellent.
Diversion for us from our usual stuff of horror and blockbusters and stuff like that. It's nice.
Yeah, I'd be well up for that. I'm also, if I can find a copy of that Cobweb, I will definitely have a wee look. I mean, Anthony Starr, again, I would pretty much watch doing anything, so that sounds dirty. That's not what I mean. He's just a very good actor.
Yes.
Very good actor.
Yes. And he's easy in the eye. Doesn't hurt.
You said it. You said
Yep.
it.
So that pretty much wraps us up in terms of our conversation about summer movies. So it's been nice being back talking with everybody again. It's obviously very nice being able to chat about multiple movies as well, which is always good fun. So as usual, you can catch us on all the major social channels. We are on X, formerly Twitter, as everybody seems to call it. They always say X, formerly Twitter. On Facebook, Instagram, just hit us up at Moviescramble. You can get a hold of us there. We're available individually on the various socials as well, but probably the easiest way is to get in touch with us that way. You can get us on email as well. We have a dedicated mailbox for the pod. It's podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. And if you look on Twitter as well, you'll be able to find our individual bios out there as well. So if you want to get in touch with us for anything, especially Mary, because she seems to be guesting on numerous podcasts these days, which, you know.
In fairness, the
good.
Vampire Videos one I recorded back in like May or something. It was a long time ago. Actually, that was a great film, and you both would love that. It's called Let's Scare Jessica to Death. If you can go over the 70s cheesiness of it, it was quite a creeping, sort of unsettling type of it. And you know, I'm a shite bag, so the fact that I watched it all the way to the end was in itself. You may have.
Yeah.
I feel like that as I was watching it, I was like, I bet Sammy would love this. So I feel like it's got you written all over it. So
I'd like to give a shout out to somebody who got in touch with us, a guy called Gavin Mann, who got in touch on Twitter and recommended our podcast as part of his Twitter thread where he recommends. I think he does it once a month or so. So it was very nice of him to say some nice things about the podcast. It was also nice the fact that he mentioned our Scottish accents, and I didn't have the heart to tell him that we're actually all based in Somerset and we just put on a Scottish accent for the first podcast, and it just seemed to fit quite nicely, so now we just do it. But the problem with that is obviously we need to have an urban dictionary with lots of Scottish slang that we can use it. So, you know, that's why we come up with things like Dunderhead and getting your jotters and all this sort of stuff. And it's getting more and more difficult to be Scottish and not revert back to our native English accents at any time. I really struggle with it, as you can tell, because sometimes I slip and it just doesn't sound right. So,
especially when you're calling in Jeeves the butler, but we obviously thought we'd get we thought we'd get funding if we sounded working class. Is that where we're going with this? Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. You know, let's sound a bit more northern. So that's us. Thank you everyone for listening. It's just nice to make content again, and it's very good fun. So from myself, I shall speak to you later. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.